Ladies and gentlemen, welcome here at the Benelux House. Friends of the Benelux, and of course, dear Mr. Minister Marron of the Brussels region, a special welcome to you. Despite challenging times, despite challenging circumstances, we hope today to launch here the newer, the greener and a cleaner mobility in the Benelux, which can serve as an inspiration to our European friends. Today here, you can see it around me, we are living in a living lab. Today's title, E-Mobility in the Benelux, includes a launch of our platform, of our website, the identification, the registration organization for charging operators. And of course, we are trying to symbolize this by an inauguration of our Benelux charging station, newly installed here in the garage of the Benelux House. It's a special day, not only because the 14th of July is the national celebration day of our French neighbors, but, and of course we congratulate our French neighbors on this, but closer to the topic, Europe is expecting big news in the light of the famous Green Deal that today is substantiated by the EU Commission with its Fit for 55 plans. That means ambitions on CO2 are combined now with actual legislation. And by the way, car emissions will be a key topic in this Fit for 55 plan that are being launched today. Today's Benelux launch is a perfect example of such concrete project, where we as Benelux Corporation would like to take a lead in seamless, sustainable mobility across borders. Very important. Today's program is short and to the point, and let me take you through it. We will start by setting the European frame by Mr. Davite, who is a specialist on alternative fuels for the European Commission DG Move. Then we will ask Mr. Marron to give his point of view from the Brussels region and also as representing the Belgian presidency. And we will then move over to our inauguration of the charging station that represents the launch of the platform. And we will close the day with the ins and outs of how the platform works by Mr. Yasmina Yarim, who is our expert here at the Benelux House on this very topic. The Benelux Corporation, ladies and gentlemen, has always been at the heart of the European project. The Benelux countries were founding fathers, and our role continues to be a function as a living lab for EU cooperation in terms of policy. And we therefore welcome our first speaker, Mr. Saki Gerasis Davite, specialist on sustainable mobility, and he can tell us more about how our Benelux initiative frames within, as said, the very actual European context. Mr. Davite, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Molema. Good afternoon, everyone. Saki Gerasis speaking here today with you. It's a great pleasure to be here in this fantastic event, in this fantastic inauguration that you are setting up here today. And as Mr. Molema was mentioning, today is a special day. It's a symbolic day for many reasons. But when we talk about the European Commission, it's the special day for the release of the Fit for 55 package that, as you all know, it will fulfill and it will help achieve the decarbonization of Europe and particularly of the transport sector. So with this brief speech, I'd like to set up a bit the contents of where are we right now and where do we go. So first, as you know, we are in the middle of a double transition. First, a sustainable transition by which we are in the middle of an irreversible shift to zero emission mobility. So in this context, the package that the Commission will set up today, and at the core, the revision of the Alternative Fuels Infrastructure Directive that plays an important role in the context of the project and the living lab that we are inaugurating here today. So in this context, we need to ensure that transport sets a new path, so ensures a transition towards zero emissions. So in this context, of course, we have to put all the dots together.
Mr. Saki, I'm afraid we have lost sounds. Have you pushed the wrong button, maybe?
Sorry, yes, can you hear
now
me again?
Now it's perfect again.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
If you repeat your last three phrases, that would be great. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I was saying, we are in the middle of a transition. So at the core of the Fit for 55 package, with the revision of the Alternative Fuels Infrastructure Directive, we want to ensure two things. First, that enough refuel and recharging infrastructure will be in place in Europe, and that this infrastructure is digitally connected and it's smart. So all works well together. So in this context, if we move now to the next slide, as you can see, as I was mentioning, we are in the middle of a double transition. The second is smart. So we want to achieve a seamless, safe, and efficient connectivity. So for that, the Living Lab for EU Mobility that the Benelux you are inaugurating here today, it's a perfect example. And as in the Commission, we adopted the fact of leading by example. This is a fantastic way to show other member states how things can be done and how we can support all each other to achieve this transition. So in this context, to achieve multimodality, to achieve better user friendliness for users, we need to put, as I was saying, all the dots together. So in this context, this project is very, very important. So let me now, after contextualizing a bit these two digital transitions, what benefits and what is adding value the inauguration and the IDRO that you are presenting here today. So in first place, I like to mention that simple and easy to compare information of the different prices of the different fuels is fundamental. User information is a key enabler to ensure that the uptake of alternative fuels and the uptake of electromobility takes place in Europe from now on in a mass market development. So for that, it is necessary to provide customers with sufficient information regarding the geographic location and all the characteristics and services that a user needs to effectively recharge its vehicle in Europe. So for that, we need, of course, to put in place the relevant data that is available and accessible in an open market ecosystem. So for that, in this context, the data collection related to recharging and refueling points for alternative fuels and unique ID identifiers that the Program Support Action IDAX has been doing since 2019, also promoted and supported in the context of the Alternative Fuels Infrastructure Directive, has played a fundamental role to set this path. So now we are entering a new phase with the Fit for 55 package, a new legislative proposal that after the previous one in 2014 is promoting a new age. So for that, it's crucial that all actors in the electromobility ecosystem can interact easily through digital means to provide the best service quality. Now, we don't only want enough infrastructure, we want this enough infrastructure to be digitally connected and meet users' needs. So for that, the appointment and the setup of ID registration organization for issuing and managing the unique ID codes is fundamental to bring certainty to the market. So in this context, we believe that this will boost the more certain and controlled development of a market by which user information on prices and the overall context of the required data elements can be easily provided and users can benefit from. So in this context, and just to conclude, I'd like to much congratulate the work doing by you, the member states of the Benelux and the other participant member states in the Program Support Action IDAX that helps to operationalize this IDRO here today. But as I said, just to finalize, and perhaps you are also, I believe, eager to know what can we expect from the new proposal of the Alternative Fuels Infrastructure Directive, I can already anticipate a bit that we can only expect that this concept is just going to be reinforced. So from now on, we are going to just start a new phase where we are only going to keep growing and developing on this concept. So I'm pretty sure in the next hours, when you look at the new proposal, you will be happy to see how the work already initiated and the effort put during these years, it's now reflected. So without taking more time of you, I just congratulate you again for this event, for this inauguration, and hope to come back here perhaps in the future to continue celebrating and inaugurating more success that we will do together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davite, and for an interesting speech that gives us more inspiration going forward. You talked about data, you talked about further staying in touch, and feel welcome, and you will get an invitation for upcoming working group meetings on this very topic, because it's a start and not only the beginning of hopefully many cooperation between us as Benelux and the European Union in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, today's project is not only special because we are 3 countries working together, we also have 3 regions within Belgium that are closely linked to the Benelux cooperation. And it's therefore that I'm very pleased that we have the Minister for, amongst others, Climate Transition and Energy amongst us for Brussels region, Mr. Maron. Actually, Mr. Maron, just a few, no, it's exactly 1 year ago, last year at 14th of July, your colleague, Mrs. Elke van den Brand, launched with us and offered the biking declaration to Commissioner Timmermans. So we must have very similar timing with the climate and energy cooperation with our European friends. So it's very good to hear your, let's say, Brussels initiatives that are striving to find a green way out of the pandemic, if I can put it this way, with all the nice bike paths that has been put. I hope you can add a little bit on this topic with your speech today on how e-mobility, green mobility from Brussels, but also in your role as presidency of the Benelux for Belgium. The floor, the green floor, is literally yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jan. Dear Benelux friends, for over a decade, sustainable transport has been at the heart of the Benelux partnership, and I'm delighted to be with you today to take a step forward together towards smooth, low-emission mobility. The Benelux countries have been working together on clean transport for long. They play a pioneering role in electric mobility, given that the Benelux accounts for 1/5 of all electric and hybrid cars in the EU, and more than 1/3 of all EU public charging points. It's a great achievement, and I'd like to thank all the stakeholders for contributing to it. Yet, it's far from enough. To achieve our Green Deal targets and be carbon neutral by 2050, we have to go further and faster to reduce our emissions. And this is not just about climate. By doing so, we'll also improve our citizens' health, especially in our densely populated region, the Benelux. In Brussels, the government has recently decided to ban diesel vehicles by 2030 and other thermic vehicles by 2035. Our low emission zone has proved to be very efficient in protecting the health of our citizens and achieving our climate goals. By reinforcing it towards the full thermic ban, we are sending an important message. It has been estimated that it would save more than 100 lives per year in Brussels, in the Brussels region, and reduce NO2-related respiratory diseases by 25%. This ambitious shift implies that we must strongly support alternatives to thermic cars. That's why we have adopted a regional strategic vision which aims to install more than 20,000 charging points by 2035. However, we can't achieve this alone, especially on the scale of a city. Brussels isn't an island. Thousands of people are coming in and out every day. To achieve this ambitious shift, we need a comprehensive and interoperable network of charging infrastructure covering as many countries as possible. I'm therefore delighted to be here today with my counterparts to launch the Benelux IDRO web portal, which stands for Benelux ID Registration Organization, for e-mobility entrepreneurs. It will make the life of drivers and charging point operators much easier. E-driving should indeed become as seamless as existing fossil-powered cars today. Electric vehicle drivers should, for instance, receive real-time information on the location of charging stations, as well as availability and payment methods. And that's exactly what this project aims to do. From now on, whenever a Belgian family wishes to spend the weekend in Zealand with their electric car, it will be possible. The website provides an unique identification code to any charging point operator or mobility service provider willing to be active in the Benelux. This unique code aims to facilitate the market, the exchange of data, and the transparency of billing. It also helps foster the implementation of charging infrastructure in the Benelux, which is essential, of course. Ultimately, this offers every citizen seamless, hassle-free cross-border electric driving. And that is why, as Brussels Minister of the Environment and Energy, under the Belgian presidency of the Benelux Union, I am delighted to officially launch the Benelux IDEO platform today. And as the saying goes, a better climate starts on your own initiative. Only recently, the roof of our Benelux house was covered with some solar panels. And today we are installing the first charging point to show our commitment towards low emission mobility. This station will be available to the visitors coming by car, by bike, or even by public transport. Let's not forget that a car remains a car, and that our priority should always be to encourage its alternatives to reduce congestion and create more public space for other activities. Today's launch of the e-charging website and the inauguration of the charging point show once again that the Benelux Union continues to be a front runner in Europe and contributes in its own pragmatic and tangible way to reaching the Green Deal target of 1 million charging points by 2025 in the European Union. I hope that this example of close cooperation between our different countries will lead to many more projects of this type across Europe. The low carbon transition is indeed a huge challenge for our planet. It requires the involvement of all the stakeholders, entrepreneurs, public authorities, researchers, citizens, etc., in order to be achieved on time. Let's keep on moving together towards this goal. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Maron, for these nice words, for the interesting ideas. You were talking about a weekend in Zealand. I'm not sure with the current weather whether anybody wants to drive to Zealand with his electric car, but let's think about connecting our capitals, starting with Brussels here in the middle of the Benelux, going to The Hague with your electric car and not being worried about how to where and how to charge, having the information on your screens in your car or simply on your phone, and of course having the possibility to drive to Namur, Liège or Luxembourg in a seamless way, as we have said, across borders. Well, here it is, the moment. We have a platform ready online. You can serve there in this very moment. We will right now inaugurate the charging station, brand new installed in the Benelux House. I invite you all to come to the Benelux House next time by electric car, maybe by bike, or even by public transport, maybe even better. But it is possible for you to charge your car. Mr. Minister, here we go. It's your presidency. Thank you very much.
Okay.
The Benelux Hydro organization is now online.
Great.
And the light is shining. Thank you. We will now continue with an info session by Mr. Yasmina Yarin, our Mrs. Benelux e-mobility, on the ins and outs of the platform. Please stay tuned. We will make a small promotional video in between. Thank you.
Many thanks to Minister Alain Marron for his speech, and also to Jan Mollema for his first charging session, which symbolized officially the launch of the Benelux Hydro website. My name is Yasmina Jarin. I work at the Benelux Secretariat, and I will guide you now through this new but very user-friendly website. Don't hesitate to ask your question through the chat. We will answer your questions at the end of this session. So if you are a mobility service provider or charging point operator or even a location owner and you would like to be active in the Benelux region, we invite you now to go on our website, which is www.benelux-idro.eu. So the IDRO, which stands for ID Registration Organization, is a common Benelux service which assigns ID codes for e-mobility on behalf of Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. So let's go through the website now. We are on the home page where you can find easily the quick access buttons for the ID request and the ID register with some description. Also, the different partners, as this website has been made on request of the relevant ministries of Brussels, of course, Flanders, Wallonia, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. So if I want to go to the ID request, we will invite you first to read carefully our terms of reference, which contains the general conditions, general terms and conditions for this Benelux IDRO. We also will go lately on the frequently asked questions, but basically it's an online form, very easy, where you can say if you would like to have an ID as a mobility service provider or as a charging point operator. You can directly choose if you want the code for Belgium, the Netherlands, and or Luxembourg, and you can even say which abbreviation you prefer. And then several information is asked to make the request. But before filling in the form, we invite you to go to the practical information, because that's the most important thing. So basically, who can request an ID code? As I say, if you are MSP, a CPO, or location owner, and that you have a proven legal entity, you are authorized to fill in the form. How much does it cost? This is the main question. So, of course, this Benelux IDRO asks a fee to cover the cost of issuing and maintaining the IDs. So the registration fee is 100 euros, and the annual fee is 90 euros. Last but not least, what is the process? So basically, when you fill in the form, the Benelux Secretariat has 10 business days to process your request. Either it's accepted or rejected, but if it's accepted, you will get a notification and an invitation of payment. And as soon as the payment is done, the ID code will be published on our ID register and then ready to use. So if I go now on the ID request, so here you can find already all the companies that have been requested an ID. You can see what kind of ID. So if you would like to have a new ID code, we also invite you to check this register first. And you can also upload this register. Then we move on to more about. So if you want to know more about the Benelux Secretariat, what we do, who we are, you can also see the different partners again. And you also can have some information on the IDEX project, which was mentioned before by the European Commission. So IDEX is this European project on ID issuing and data collection for alternative fuels, where the Benelux countries are a member of. Also good to know is within this IDEX project, ID registration repository will be made, where you can have an overview of all the IDROs available in the EU. And we, as Benelux Hydro, will host this repository. This will be available in the upcoming months. Then let's move on to frequently asked questions, and also don't hesitate to ask me questions now in the chat. But we already made a list of a few questions you might have, or you might get at one point. So first one is, do I have to be established in one of the Benelux countries? No, you don't necessarily need to. Your organization does not have to be established in the Benelux countries, but your organization should request its first ID in the country where you are legally based. So if you're a German company, you should first get a German ID code before coming and make a request for one of the Benelux codes. Then, can I request an ID code as a MSP and a CPO at the same time? The answer is yes. You can simultaneously send an ID request for both. The ID code will be the same. If you want a different ID code as MSP and a CPO, then you have to make two different requests, and then different two fees will be applicable. Third one, can I make one request for several Benelux codes, so one per country? As I've shown you before, the answer is yes. You can simultaneously send a request for several Benelux codes, and the ID code will be then BE, NL, and LU. Then, if I request an ID for several countries, do I have to pay multiple registration and yearly fees? So if you initiate a request for an ID for several Benelux countries, you will pay one registration fee, so one per request. And if you initiate a different request, then you pay, of course, multiple registration fees. However, the annual fee is linked to the applicant's organization or company. Then, if you already have an ID for one of the Benelux countries, and would like to request the same code for the other Benelux countries, what should I do? Then again, you have to send a request indicating which Benelux countries you want a code for. We will then analyze and process your request. Where do I go if I want to change a code? So if you want to change a code, again, you have to make a formal request via our website, and you will have to pay a registration fee for this specific request. Then, last but not least, what if I want to cancel my code? You have a notice of 3 months, but you can find in the terms of reference that the registration fee will not be reimbursed. So that's for the website on itself. You can also find at the bottom of every page our contact details. Let me see now if we have questions via the chat. So the first one, is it possible for other countries to join the Benelux IDRO? I would say yes, in 2 ways. So either the countries already have IDRO, and then they will be on this repository, so on this overview of all the EU IDROs. So you will be noticed on our website. And on the long term, there will also be the possibility for countries who don't have an IDRO yet to, via bilateral agreement with us, to also use the Benelux Hydro website to get a code. So this is possible, and if you want more information, then I suggest you to contact us directly. Any more Benelux? Are there any more Benelux e-mobility projects on the horizon? Well, Jan mentioned it before. There is a Benelux working group with the relevant ministries of the 3 countries. This working group follows actually very closely the evolution and the developments on e-mobility nationwide and European-wide. So with this new Fit for 55 package and the new proposal on alternative fuels directive, we of course will have more to come the upcoming months and years. Another question: how long does it take, more or less, to make the request? I would say very easy. I tried it a few times. I would say 5 minutes. What we really need is all your contact details, all the applicant details, information, and information about your company, because we, of course, do a background check before accepting any ID, before delivering any ID codes. When can I expect an answer on my request? So as you can see on the page of ID request, it says that within 10 business days, the Benelux Secretariat will contact you or notify you if your request has been accepted or rejected. And if it has been rejected, we will contact you also very quickly. What can be the reasons to reject? Very good question. Well, of course, if the application has not been filled in correctly, if there is some information, incorrect information, but also if the code that has been asked has been already used or is in use, then we might have a problem for clear identification. So this could be one of the reasons. But of course, we will communicate you what are the reasons of rejection. Okay, then I think my time is up. Thank you very much for your questions, your time. We hope you will make good use of this new platform. If you have more questions, don't hesitate to contact us via email. And I will now hand over to Jan Mollema for the closing words. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Yasmina. We are at safe distance in this big space full of electric cars. Thank you, Yasmina, for explaining the platform to us. We heard that the first sign-up today came from Chargy in Luxembourg, so that's a good start. Best regards to Luxembourg from here from Brussels. And see this platform and see today's event as our contribution to the Green Deal. We have tried to set up a platform in practical and concrete ways to make seamless e-mobility across borders, as said before, to make that possible within the Benelux. We hope to inspire our European neighbors and hopefully the whole of the EU. Like some decades ago, we started the Schengen area. Maybe this is an electric Schengen area for the future. Of course, we would like to thank a few people that have made today possible. Not in the least the working group that Yasmina hosts here at the Benelux House, digital or hopefully soon in physical terms again, that works on alternative fuels. They, the member states, and as mentioned before, also the regions, they have called for this action. We have together worked out all the legislative tools that were necessary. And today, here we are launching a digital tool to make seamless e-mobility possible. Of course, the physical surroundings here, Dieteren company from Belgium and also the Belgium Association for E-Mobility, AVERE, Jochen de Smet, he was watching right now. Thank you very much for making this possible. Of course, not in the least, our Benelux crew and story catchers here, making the digital day work and function in a very positive way. I hope that today is the start for more Benelux e-mobility cooperation, and I hope to see you here soon in the Benelux House to make the Green Deal work in the Benelux and in Europe. Thank you very much.